It was a Sunday afternoon when everything changed. The kind of lazy afternoon where I thought I could just sit on the couch, flip through a book, and enjoy the rare, quiet moments of our busy life. But when I walked into our bedroom, I found myself facing the kind of reality that most people only experience in their nightmares. I had been in the kitchen making lunch when Mark's phone buzzed on the counter. It was a ringtone that sounded different from the usual alert, a kind of soft chime that immediately caught my attention. I hadn't meant to snoop, but my curiosity got the best of me. When I picked up the phone to turn the volume down, I saw a name that froze me in place. Emily, college days. I didn't know who Emily was. I racked my brain, but the name didn't sound familiar. I had heard about some of his college friends, but this name, Emily, was new to me. I told myself it was nothing, just a name that probably didn't mean anything. I was being paranoid. But then came the next text, and it all started to feel too real. Can't wait to see you again. I miss those late-night talks in the dorms. You were always my favorite. The words felt like they pierced through the calm I had been clinging to. Mark had never mentioned anyone named Emily, at least not in a way that seemed significant. I didn't recognize the way she talked to him, like they had a history, like they had shared something deep and meaningful. I told myself to calm down. Maybe it was an old friend, nothing to worry about, right? Maybe it was a harmless message. But when I tried to shove the unease down, it wouldn't go away. That feeling that something wasn't right kept creeping up in the back of my mind. I decided to confront him. No more second-guessing, no more pretending. I had to know what was going on. I grabbed the phone and marched to the bedroom. I pushed open the door, expecting to find Mark either lounging on the bed or tidying up, nothing too out of the ordinary. But what I walked into was the complete opposite of anything I could have imagined. Mark was sitting on the edge of the bed, and in front of him was a woman I had never seen before. She was sitting close to him, her hand resting on his knee, and they were laughing about something. The room seemed to spin as I stood there in the doorway, frozen in place. This woman wasn't just any friend. She was familiar with him in a way that made my stomach twist. She was beautiful, tall, with dark hair that cascaded down her back in waves, and a smile that lit up her face as she looked at him. There was something about the way they looked at each other, something intimate, something that made me feel like I had just walked into a moment I wasn't supposed to witness. The air in the room felt suffocating as I stood there, my hand gripping the doorframe. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. How was I supposed to react? What was I supposed to say? Mark's eyes met mine, wide with shock. "Sarah," he started, standing up quickly, his voice shaky. "I didn't expect you home so soon." I couldn't even bring myself to speak. I just stared at them both, too many emotions swirling in my chest. The woman, this Emily, finally turned to face me. Her expression softened, but there was no mistaking the recognition in her eyes. It was like she knew exactly who I was and was somehow unfazed. "Hi, I'm Emily," she said, her voice smooth, almost apologetic. "I've heard a lot about you." I felt like the floor had been ripped out from beneath me. Emily, this was the woman whose name had been popping up in texts, the one who had been sharing private moments with my husband, the one he had referred to as my favorite. Mark looked between us, his face pale. "Sarah, I didn't want you to find out like this." I shook my head, trying to steady my breathing, but my heart was racing. "Find out what?" My voice fell hollow, as though the words were being dragged out of me. "What's going on, Mark? Who is she?" Emily gave him a look that was almost knowing, like they shared some unspoken understanding. "Mark didn't tell you, did he?" she said, her tone too casual for the weight of the situation. "I'm his long-lost love from college. We reconnected recently, and well, we've been catching up." I felt my breath hitch. Long-lost love? What did that even mean? He'd never once mentioned her. Never once told me that there was someone from his past who had meant this much to him. I turned to Mark, my eyes searching his face for any kind of explanation. But he couldn't meet my gaze. "Mark!" I asked again, voice rising. "You didn't mention her? You didn't tell me she was someone important?" His eyes were wide now, like he was desperate for some way to explain himself. "It's complicated, Sarah. I didn't want to hurt you. Emily and I had something special back in college. But it ended, and we both moved on. But recently, we ran into each other again, and things happened. I could feel the anger rising in me, hot and overwhelming. Things happened," I repeated, disbelief creeping into my voice. "You're telling me that you've been seeing her behind my back, and now you think things happened? You think I'm just supposed to accept this? After everything we've built?" Mark's voice cracked. "I never meant for it to go this far. It's not what you think, Sarah. It was just some conversations, some catching up. It was nothing like you're imagining." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "Nothing like I'm imagining? You're sitting here with her, acting like it's nothing, and you expect me to believe you? You expect me to believe this was just catching up?" Emily opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "No," I said sharply. "Don't try to make this sound innocent. You've been in my home, with my husband, sharing laughs, sharing memories. And you think I'm just supposed to walk away and pretend everything's fine?" Mark stepped forward, trying to calm me down. "Please, just let me explain. I never meant for you to find out like this. It's complicated. I didn't want to hurt you." But I couldn't even hear him anymore. Everything about this moment felt unreal. How had I not seen this coming? How had I missed the signs that there was something more than what he had been telling me? "You didn't want to hurt me?" I asked, voice trembling now. "You've been hiding her from me, lying to me, and you think this is just some small mistake? What were you thinking, Mark? Why? Did you think I wouldn't notice?" "I didn't think you'd find out, Sarah," he said softly. "I never wanted to hurt you." I shook my head, the tears starting to spill. "It's too late for that, Mark. You've already hurt me. You've already broken my trust. And I don't even know how to look at you anymore." He reached for me, but I stepped back, not wanting him to touch me. "I don't want your apology," I said through gritted teeth. "I don't want you to say you're sorry again. I want the truth. I want to know how long this has been going on. I want to know if there's more." Emily stood up, her expression changing from calm to something sharper, almost knowing. "Sarah," she said quietly, "I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm just part of the past. We're both adults. Mark and I reconnected, but this was always something he had to figure out. He's always loved you." She turned to Mark, and they shared a moment, a look that I couldn't shake. It was like they were in on a secret, one that I wasn't a part of. I turned away, the pain too much to bear. "I don't want to hear any more. I need to be alone," I said, my voice cracking. Without another word, I walked out of the room, slamming the door behind me. I couldn't look at him anymore. I couldn't stand to be in the same space as the man who had betrayed me. I collapsed onto the couch, clutching my phone in my hand, trying to steady my breathing. How Had it come to this? How had my husband, my partner, my best friend, turned into someone I didn't recognize? How had this woman, this long-lost love, found her way back into our lives and into his heart? Everything I had known, everything I had believed about our life together had just been shattered, and I had no idea what to do next. The days that followed were filled with a quiet tension. It wasn't just the silence between Mark and me. It was the silence inside me as I tried to make sense of the emotional storm I was caught in. I had spent so many years loving and trusting him, and now the man I thought I knew was slowly slipping away, leaving only pieces of lies and hidden truths behind. I couldn't bring myself to look at Mark the same way anymore. He was still here, physically, present in our home, but it felt like he was a stranger. It was as if I was seeing him for the first time, but through a veil of doubt and betrayal. I kept replaying that moment in the living room, the way he had tried to explain away his secret life with Emily, the way he downplayed the seriousness of what had happened. His words, his excuses, felt hollow now, empty of the trust and love I had once felt. I didn't know where to go from here. I kept asking myself if I could ever trust him again, or if I was just holding on to the person I wanted him to be, not the one who had lied to my face. I didn't even know where to start. Could I even begin to forgive him? Or was the damage done? Irreversible? The next few days were a blur. I spent most of my time at my sister's house. I needed distance, a place where I could think without the constant reminder of the lies, without Mark's pleading, apologies ringing in my ears. I didn't want to hear, "I'm sorry" again. I needed time to think, time to heal, or at least to try. When I finally returned home, the apartment felt different. Mark had been trying to give me space, but his presence was still everywhere. The things he'd touched, the places we'd shared, everything felt like a reminder of what was lost. As I walked into the living room, I saw him sitting there waiting for me. His face was drawn, and his eyes were heavy with remorse. But I couldn't bring myself to care. Not yet. He stood up when he saw me, his expression faltering. "Sarah, please, can we talk?" His voice was quiet, tentative, as if unsure how to approach me anymore. But I was tired of talking, tired of listening to apologies that didn't change anything. I wasn't ready to forgive him, and I wasn't sure if I ever would be. "I don't know what to say to you anymore," I replied, my voice flat. "I don't know how to look at you without feeling betrayed. I don't know how to move forward when everything I thought we had is built on a lie." His shoulders slumped, and he took a step toward me, his eyes pleading. "I never meant for it to be like this. I thought I could keep everything separate. I thought I could love you and still keep parts of myself hidden away. And you thought I wouldn't notice?" I asked, my voice trembling now, the anger still simmering beneath the surface. "You thought I wouldn't see the other woman in your life? You thought I wouldn't find out about Emily?" He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes closing briefly in frustration. "I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted you to find out. I was stupid, but it wasn't like what you think. It was a stupid, selfish mistake that spiraled out of control. I'm not asking for you to forgive me right now, Sarah, but I need you to understand that it wasn't about not loving you. I do love you. I always have." I stared at him, trying to keep my composure, but I felt the tears threatening to spill. "How do you expect me to believe that?" I whispered. "How do you expect me to believe anything you say when I saw the way you were with her? The way you were talking to her like you were someone else. You've been lying to me for months, Mark. Months. And now you expect me to trust you again. You expect me to just move on from this." He stepped closer, his face anguished. "I know it's hard to believe. I know I've shattered your trust. But I'm here, Sarah. I'm still here, and I'll do whatever it takes to show you that I want to fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll cut off all contact with Emily. I'll prove to you that I'm committed to us, to our family." I looked away, struggling to hold back the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. "It's not just about cutting her out of your life, Mark. It's about showing me that I'm enough for you. It's about showing me that you value our marriage enough to not hide parts of yourself from me. That you value me enough to tell me the truth, even when it's hard." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "I failed you in every way possible, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I don't even know if I deserve to be forgiven. But I'm asking you to let me try, to let me prove that I can be the man you need." I looked at him, my heart aching at the sincerity in his eyes. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this wasn't the end, that there was still hope for us. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was broken beyond repair. How do you rebuild trust when the foundation has crumbled? How do you move forward when the person you thought you knew has been hiding a life from you? I stood there in the silence, unsure of what to say next. Mark was waiting, his eyes wide with fear and hope, as if this conversation would determine our future. And in many ways it did. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breathing. "I don't know if I can do this," I whispered. "I don't know if I can move past this. You've hurt me in ways I can't even explain. And right now I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't know if I can look at you the same way." Mark's face crumpled, and for a brief moment I saw the man I once loved, the man who had been so open with me in the beginning, the man I had built a life with. But that man was gone, replaced by the man standing in front of me now, full of regret, full of apologies, but still unable to answer the one question that mattered. Can we rebuild this? "I'm sorry," he said again, his voice barely audible. "I'll do anything to prove that I'm sorry. I'll do anything to make this right." I shook my head, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. "I don't know if anything will make this right." We stood there in the silence, both of us feeling the weight of what had happened, the weight of the decisions we both had to make. I didn't know where this was going. I didn't know if I could ever forgive him, if I could ever trust him again. But for the first time since I found those texts, I knew one thing. We couldn't move forward until we were both ready to face the truth. And I didn't know if either of us was ready. "Maybe we should take a step back," I said quietly, wiping my eyes. "I need time, Mark. I need time to figure out if this is something I can even begin to fix." He nodded slowly, his eyes filled with pain and uncertainty. "I'll wait, as long as it takes." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, waiting for me to make a decision. But I couldn't make it yet. The path forward was still too unclear, too painful to navigate. And as I stepped outside into the cool evening air, I realized that this wasn't just about forgiving Mark. This was about forgiving myself for not seeing the signs, for letting the doubt creep in without acknowledging it. This was about healing, something that couldn't be rushed, something that would take time, patience, and perhaps a little bit of hope. But whether that hope would be enough to bring us back together, I didn't know. Not yet. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty, a quiet storm that hung between Mark and me. I stayed at my sister's house for a few nights, needing the physical distance from him and the space to breathe without the constant reminder of the emotional weight that had settled over our home. Each time I thought I could make a decision, something inside me held me back. My mind was clouded with questions I didn't have answers to yet. Could I forgive him? Could I ever trust him again after everything he'd kept hidden from me? Could our marriage survive this? In those days, I did what I could to keep busy. I worked, I spent time with my sister, and I tried to keep my mind from wandering back to the pain of discovery. But the questions, the fear, the anger, they lingered like a storm cloud I couldn't outrun. Mark didn't push me for answers. He called occasionally, left texts apologizing for his actions, telling me he missed me, telling me he was waiting. But I couldn't respond. It wasn't that I didn't care about him. It wasn't that I hadn't loved him for so long. But the truth was I didn't know what I was feeling, and I needed to figure that out before I made any decision about our future. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I went home. I couldn't keep running from the problem, and I couldn't avoid the inevitable confrontation. Mark had given me space, and now it was time to see if I could make sense of the chaos in my heart. When I walked into the apartment, I felt a strange mix of dread and hope. Mark was sitting on the couch, as he had been for the past few days, but his eyes were different now. He looked like a man who had been waiting for an answer that he feared he might not get. He looked up as I entered, his face pale, a little worn from the days of uncertainty. But when he saw me, his eyes lit up, as though seeing me again gave him a flicker of hope. "Sarah," he said, standing quickly, "thank you for coming home." I stood still in the doorway for a moment, feeling the weight of the moment settle over me. "I needed to come back," I said quietly, not sure of what I was about to say or feel. "But I'm not sure what to do next." He nodded, his eyes scanning me as if searching for some hint of forgiveness or understanding. "I know I've hurt you," he said, his voice breaking, "and I understand that I can't expect you to forgive me overnight. But I'm asking you, please, let me prove that I can be the man you thought I was." I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in days, I felt the stirrings of something faint, something that felt like the beginning of the person I had fallen in love with. But even as I saw the man I loved in front of me, I couldn't ignore the deep fissures in our relationship, the betrayal that had shaken everything I thought I knew. I walked into the living room and sat down on the couch, my hands folded tightly in my lap. "Mark," I said slowly, my voice wavering, "you broke my trust, and that's something I don't know how to fix. How do I look at you and not think about everything you've kept from me? How do I move forward when every time I look at you, I see the lies, the secrets?" He sat down beside me, his body tense, his hand reaching for mine. I pulled back instinctively, not because I didn't want him there, but because I didn't know if I was ready to feel his touch. Again, he looked at me, his eyes pleading. "I know it's not that simple," he said softly, "but I need you to understand that what I did was about me, not you. I thought I was doing it for the right reasons. I thought I was protecting you by hiding the truth, but now I see how wrong I was. I see that the only thing I've done is hurt you." I closed my eyes, trying to push the emotions back down, but they were overwhelming, swirling inside me like a storm, demanding attention, demanding action. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "How long did you lie to me? How long were you living a double life?" Mark's face crumpled. 6 months, he admitted, his voice raw. I thought I could stop, but the more I kept going, the harder it became to turn back. "And I never told you, Sarah, because I was afraid you would leave me." I shook my head, tears rising in my eyes. So you kept lying, kept hiding this from me because you were afraid I would leave you? You thought keeping me in the dark was better than telling me the truth. I didn't know how to tell you, he said, his voice thick with regret. I didn't want to lose you. Sarah, I couldn't lose you. I stood up, pacing around the room, trying to make sense of the mess in my head. But you already did, I said, my voice shaking. You lost me the moment you started hiding things from me, the moment you started building a secret life. I stopped and turned to face him, my heart pounding in my chest. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if I even want to fix this. I don't know if I can forgive you. You've betrayed me in ways I can't even begin to understand. He stood up then, his hands reaching for me, but this time I didn't pull away. I stood there, my body rigid, waiting for him to speak. I'm sorry, he said again, his voice raw with emotion. I will spend the rest of my life trying to earn your trust. If you can't forgive me, if you can't move past this, I'll accept that. But I won't give up on us. I won't give up on you. I closed my eyes, trying to sort through the feelings that were rushing through me. Part of me wanted to tell him to leave, to walk out of my life, to never look back. But another part of me, the part that loved him, that had spent years building a life with him, was desperate to believe him, to believe that we could overcome this. I need more time, I whispered, my voice breaking. I need to think about what I want. What I need. He nodded slowly, his face a mixture of relief and sorrow. Take all the time you need, he said. I'll wait. I'll always wait. I walked out of the living room, the weight of the decision sitting heavily on my shoulders. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if I could ever forgive him. But I did know that I couldn't make that decision yet. The road ahead would be long, and it would be hard. But it was a road we would walk together if I chose to take his hand again. I spent the next few days lost in thought, my mind constantly returning to the question that had been haunting me. Can love survive betrayal? Can Mark and I rebuild the trust we'd lost? Could I ever look at him again and not see the man who had lied to me? I didn't have the answers, but I knew one thing. I wasn't ready to give up just yet. Whether that would lead to healing or heartbreak, I couldn't say. But I had to find out, and so I chose to stay. Not because I had all the answers, but because in that moment I wasn't ready to let go. I wasn't ready to walk away from the life we had built. But the journey ahead wasn't going to be easy. It would take time, and it would take trust. And whether I could give him that, whether I could trust him again, was something I didn't know yet. But I was willing to find out.